Listen, there's a kind of wound that leaves no mark on the skin. You cannot point to it. You cannot show it to anyone and say, "Here, this is where it entered." But it entered. And every morning it is there, before you open your eyes, sitting in the corner of the room, waiting for you to remember it. The people of Mushin say that Kemi Adeyemi first felt that wound on a Wednesday. Not when she sold the Ikorodu land, not when she worked double shifts at the provision shop with swollen feet and an empty bowl, not even when her own sister stopped picking her calls on the first ring. No. The wound came on a Wednesday afternoon when a customer walked into Kemi's buka in Oshode and slapped an Asoebi invitation flyer on the counter like she was doing Kemi a favor. "Your sister they do naming ceremony for Lekki Phase 1 oh," the woman said. "You get your own invitation, Abi, because this one na the general circulation copy oh." Kemi took the flyer. She read it slowly, the way you read something you are hoping will change meaning the longer you look at it. There was Amaka's face, printed in the style of the new Lagos Portrait Studios, the kind with the ring light and the Lagos skyline backdrop. Fine, beautiful, confident. And beneath it, in the clean font of a graphic designer who charged by the hour, Dr. Amaka Okonko Fashola, physician, wife, mother, daughter of the late Mr. Sunday Adeyemi and Mrs. Ronke Adeyemi of Ibadan, first in her family to walk the path of medicine, a daughter of grace, a woman of her own making. Kemi read it once. Daughter of grace, a woman of her own making. She set the flyer down on the counter. She went back to her pot. She stared. She did not say a single word for the rest of that day. Because what was there to say? She had sold the Ikorodu land to pay the first year of Amaka's school fees. She had worked this buka 6 days a week, pot by pot, tray by tray, to send money every semester for 6 years. She had gone without new clothes for 3 rainy seasons. She had said no to her own chance at a better life so that her sister could have one. And the invitation said, "A woman of her own making," as if Kemi did not exist, as if she had never existed at all. If this story is already sitting heavy on your chest, stay with me. Before we go further, if this kind of storytelling reaches you, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to this channel, because what happens next, nobody saw coming, and you do not want to miss it. When their father, Sunday Adeyemi, died, taken by a stroke on a hot Thursday morning in the kind of heat Lagos only produces when it wants you to feel the weight of being alive, he left behind 2 daughters, 1 wife, a half plot of land in Ikorodu that nobody had built on yet. Kemi was the elder, 24 years old. She had been saving quietly for 2 years, a small envelope under the mattress, the kind of savings that did not have a name yet, because naming it would make it feel too possible, and she had learnt that hope in Lagos needed to be kept small until it was ready. She had wanted to go to Yabatech, fashion design. She had a gift for it, the kind that other people noticed before she did, the kind that made her secondary school teacher tell her mother, "This one has something special, don't waste it." She buried that envelope the same week she buried her father. She did not cry about it. She was not a woman who cried about the things she chose. She was the kind of woman who looked at a difficult situation the way a Lagos Danfo driver looks at Third Mainland Bridge. She found the gap, she moved, and she did not complain about what she passed through to get there. The night after the burial, when her mother Ronke was sitting on the parlor floor with her back against the wall and her eyes somewhere far from Mushin, Kemi asked a quiet question. "Mama, what is the outstanding balance on Amaka's school fees?" Her mother looked at her. "Kemi, the number, Mama." It was not a question the second time. Her mother told her it was almost exactly the price the Ikorodu land would fetch if sold quickly. Kemi nodded the way a person nods who has already carried the weight of a decision and is only waiting for the conversation to catch up. "We sell the land. Amaka stays in school," she said. "And you?" Kemi was quiet for a moment. "I have the shop, and I have 2 hands, That is enough to start. Now, you must understand what it means to make that kind of choice in Lagos. It is not a small thing to sell land. Land in Lagos does not come back. Once it is gone the way last month's salary is gone, completely, permanently, with no sentimental attachment to where it went. People in this city fight cousins and siblings and uncles in court for decades over half plots smaller than a living room. Land is life. Kemi signed the papers and did not look back. She ran the provisions shop. She woke up before the Danfo started their morning noise, and she closed after the street lights came on. And then she would sit in the back of the shop and she would cook, because cooking was the one thing in the world that made her feel like herself, like someone whose life had not shrunk down to what was necessary. She started selling out of the shop. First, just jollof and egusi for the workers at the mechanic workshop next door. Then word spread, the way word spreads in Mushin, from one mouth to the next, across the street, down the road, into the next compound. Within a year, she had a pot in the front and a queue that started before noon. They saved every spare naira. Every quarter, she sent money to Amaka for 6 years. By the time the naming ceremony flyer landed on Kemi's counter, she had moved the buka to Oshode. Not because Mushin was not good to her. Mushin had been everything to her. But the Oshode location was bigger. It sat between 3 bus stops, and the traffic on that road meant that hungry people were never far away. She had built something real. 4 staff, a loyal customer base, a name. People called it Kemi's Place, even though the sign above the door said Mama Cheese Kitchen in bold yellow letters, because the sign writer had misheard her, and she had decided it did not matter. What mattered was the food, and the food was not the kind of food you forgot. The old woman who sold fabrics in the Oshode market, everyone called her Iya Tope, had been eating free pepper soup at Kemi's buka for 3 years, since the afternoon she had noticed her sitting on the curb outside with no food and had simply brought her a bowl without being asked. That kind of thing is remembered in Lagos. Not always loudly, but always truly. Iya Tokwe was the one who brought the customer with the flyer. She had seen the asoebi fabric in the printing shop 2 streets over. The family had commissioned a bulk order for the naming ceremony guests, and something about the name on the order form made her pause. She knew that name. She had heard it in this buka before. She wasn't sure what she was looking at, but she had brought it anyway, because she was old enough to know that when something doesn't sit right inside you, you don't ignore it. She stayed after the customer left. She sat in her usual chair by the window where the afternoon light came in sideways, and she watched Kemi at the pot.
"Kemi," she said, "when last you see your sister?" "It has been a while," Kemi said. "How long is a while?" Kemi said nothing for a moment. The oil in the pot sang softly. "Long," she said. Iyatupe looked at the flyer still sitting on the counter. "The naming ceremony is in Lekki," she said. "Phase 1. Nice house, I hear. The family get connection everywhere." "Good for her," Kemi said. The old woman sipped her soup. She said nothing more that day. But she did not leave until Kemi had eaten something herself, which Kemi often forgot to do. That should have been the end of it. It was not. Amaka came to the buka on a Saturday morning before the real crowd arrived. She came in a car with air conditioning and tinted windows, the kind of car that makes Oshodi pause and look, because that kind of car does not usually park itself on that kind of road unless someone inside it is lost. The driver waited. Amaka came inside alone. She was dressed simply, the way Lagos Island people dress when they are trying to not look like Lagos Island people and failing completely. Her skin was smooth. Her handbag was quiet in the way expensive things are quiet, not trying to prove anything. She stood inside the buka for a moment, looking at it, at the benches and the long tables covered in oilcloth, at the ceiling fan turning slowly above, at the photographs on the wall, 3 of them, of Kemi and their mother at different stages of the buka's life, at the large handwritten menu on the board above the serving counter. Kemi was in the back, tasting from a pot. She came forward when she heard footsteps. They looked at each other for a moment. "Kemi," Kemi said. "Amaka," Kemi said. You look well. Sit down. You came a long way. Amaka sat. She did not relax into the bench the way the regular customers did. She sat the way a person sits when they are getting ready to say something difficult, with their back slightly forward, their hands in her lap. Kemi brought food without asking. That was how it worked in this buka. You sat, you were fed. You did not wait to be asked. Amaka ate a little, then she put the spoon down. Kemi, my in-laws, Tunde's family, they are people who investigate. His mother especially. She has people. She asks questions through channels. She has been asking about my background, about how my school was funded. About the scholarship, Kemi said. A silence filled the room like water filling a broken bucket, quickly, completely. You heard, Amaka said. Mushin people travel, Amaka. Word goes everywhere. I told them I had a partial scholarship and that my family supported the rest. I implied we were comfortable. I did not give them the full picture. The full picture being, Kemi said, that there was no scholarship, that I sold Papazi Kokoro land, that I sent money every semester from this buka for 6 years, that Mama did not buy a new mattress for 4 years because every extra kobo went to your school fees. Amaka looked at the table. I am not asking you to lie, Kemi said. You are asking me to disappear. Amaka, Kemi said. You are asking me to stand outside the story of everything we went through and act like I was never part of it, like the sacrifice was not real, like the land is still somewhere waiting for us, like we did not give up things we cannot get back. I am asking you to let me protect what I have built, Amaka said, and her voice had an edge in it now, the edge of someone who has rehearsed this conversation and knows that rehearsal only takes you so far. I am asking you to understand that in Tunde's family, these things matter. Where you come from, how you arrived. His mother especially, she has people. She asks questions through channels. She has been asking about my background, about how my school was funded. Then let her measure the truth, Kemi said. What is she afraid it will weigh? Amaka looked at her sister. I am afraid, she said quietly, that it will weigh less than she expects. I am afraid she will look at a woman who needed her sister to fund her education and see someone who could not stand on her own. In what world, Kemi said, does a sister choosing a sister make you smaller? What kind of calculation is that? The sacrifice I made for you is not a shameful thing. It is the realest thing in your story, and you want to bury it because a woman in Lekki might raise her eyebrow. She stood up from the table. I will not lie. I will not keep quiet. I will not let you make me invisible in my own sister's life. If you drove from Lekki to Oshode hoping I will say yes to that, then this conversation is done. Amaka stood too. Her eyes were bright with something, not quite tears, but the thing that lives just before tears. Then you are going to ruin everything I have. What you have built on a lie will not survive the first serious storm. I did not choose the foundation. That was yours. Amaka walked out. The driver in the tinted car started the engine. Kemi went back to her pot. Outside, an Okada rider honked at her downfall. Someone selling groundnuts shouted a price. Lagos continued the way Lagos always continues. Loud, indifferent, enormous, alive. They say in Lagos that secrets are like sachet water. They look sealed until someone squeezes them and then they go everywhere. The squeezing came from Liatope. Not deliberately. This is the important thing to understand. The old woman had no scheme in her heart. She had only a commission and a loose mouth, which in Lagos is all the truth needs to travel. She had been selected to supply the Asoebi fabric for the Fashola family's Thanksgiving service, a large order at a church in Ikoyi. She had been dealing with the house manager, a brisk woman named Shade, and they had developed the easy conversation of two people working towards the same deadline. One afternoon, while Shade was checking the fabric samples in the Atope store, she had mentioned the way people mention things in Oshodi market without thinking about where the words would land. You know our young madam is from this area, the doctor, our Oga's wife. She grew up around here somewhere. Eh? Which doctor? Dr. Amaka, the one that did the naming ceremony in Lekki. Amaka Edeyemi. Her elder sister gets Buka right there on that road. Scholarship, Shade said, her eyes sharpening the way eyes sharpen when something does not add up. Which scholarship? That woman sell land to pay the school fees. She dey send money from this buka for 6 years. Ask anybody in this market. Ask anybody for this road. Shade said nothing. She bought her fabric, she left. She was a woman who had worked for powerful families long enough to know what information was useful and what was merely interesting. This information was both. The Fashola family matriarch, a Lagos woman of the old school, the kind who had grown up watching everything and saying very little, asked her questions through 3 layers of messengers before anything was confirmed. She verified, she cross-checked, she came to her own conclusions privately. And then she did something that nobody in this story expected. She came to Oshodi. Mama Fashola arrived on a Tuesday in a driver-led Prado with Lagos Island plates that made the mechanics in the workshop next door stop their arguing and stare. She was a compact woman with the bearing of someone who has never once in her life sat in a chair that was the best chair in the room. She sat down in Kemi's buka on a plain wooden bench under a ceiling fan, and she looked around with the calm attention of a woman who was very good at taking stock. "They tell me the food here is different," she said to Kemi, who came forward from the kitchen. "People say that. What can I bring you?" "Pepper soup and egusi. I want to decide for myself." Kemi brought both. The woman ate with focused attention of someone who takes food seriously. The buka continued its morning rhythm around her, the clatter of trays, the hiss of oil, the argument from the bus stop outside drifting in through the open door, the yellow of sunlight through old curtains. When she finished, Mama Fashola wiped her hands and looked at Kemi directly. "My son married your sister." It was not a question. "Yes," Kemi said. "She told us she was funded by a scholarship. She told us your family was comfortable. She presented herself as a woman who had climbed by her own effort. She is a brilliant doctor, that is true." "I am not questioning her degree," Mama Fashola said. "I am asking you a different question. I want to know whether my son married a woman who is capable of being honest, or whether she is the kind of person who builds a fine house on a sand and hopes no one walks around to see the foundation." Kemi was quiet. From the road outside, a downfall conductor shouted, "Ojo Elegba! Ojo Elegba! Enter with your change!" "Those are different questions," Kemi said. "I know. Answer both." Kemi sat down across from this woman she had never met. She looked at her hands and she said, "My sister is afraid. She has been afraid for a long time, of not being enough, of being measured by where she started rather than where she arrived. That fear made her make a foolish choice. But fear is not character, and a foolish choice is not the whole of a person." She looked up. "I know my sister. She is not a liar by nature. She is a frightened woman who told a lie and then had to keep telling it to hold up the first one. That does not make it right, but it makes it human." Mama Fashola looked at her for a long moment. "And you," she asked, "what kind of person are you that sold your father's land for a sister who left you out of her story?" "I am the kind of person that knows that what I gave did not become less real because she was ashamed of it. The land is gone, the money is gone, the years are gone, but I am still here, and this buka is still here, and my sister is a doctor. That is not nothing." Mama Fashola was quiet. Then she said, "This pepper soup is the best I have eaten in 15 years. "Thank you." "I will be back," she said, "and I will not come alone." She left. Outside, the danfo was gone. A new one took its place. Lagos rolled on. Amaka arrived in Oshodi on a Friday morning, 4 months after she had left without finishing her food. She came in a smaller car this time, no tinted windows. She had driven herself. Her wrapper was plain. Her face was the face of a woman who had been doing the long, uncomfortable work of looking honestly at herself and who had not always liked what she found. She did not know about Mama Fashola's visit. She did not know about Yatope and the fabric seller and the house manager named Shadi. She did not know about any of it. She only knew that her husband Tunde had come home one evening, sat across from her at the dining table in their Lekki apartment with the Lagos Lagoon visible through the window behind him, and had asked her very quietly, "Amaka, who paid for your medical school?" She had felt the question land the way the first thunder of the rainy season lands, not slowly, not gently, but all at once. She had told him everything. At the kitchen table, for 2 hours. The Ikorodu land,
the quarterly transfers, the years of her sister's work and her sister's silence and her sister's sacrifice. She had told him about the naming ceremony flyer and the words she had written, a woman of her own making. She had told him about the visit to Oshodi and the demand that Kemi disappear from the story. She had told him all of it. Tunde, who was a far better man than his family's wealth had required him to be, had listened until she finished. Then he said, "We are going to Oshodi." "For what?" "To sit at your sister's table, which we should have done before the wedding." The buka was in its quiet hour when they arrived. The lunch crowd had cleared. The girls who helped Kemi were washing trays at the back. The ceiling fan turned. The smell of the morning's cooking still sat in the room like a warm hand on the shoulder. Kemi looked up. She looked at her sister. She looked at the man behind her. She said nothing for a moment. Then she said, "You should have called. I would have saved the better pot." "Kemi, sit down, both of you. The food is still warm." They sat. Kemi served them without a word. She moved around the buka the way she always moved, with the rhythm of a woman who knows every corner of the space she has built, who has earned that knowing through years of showing up. She set bowls in front of them, and she poured water, and she sat down across from her sister. Amaka could not eat. She looked at the bowl and could not eat. "I have been sitting on a kitchen floor in Lekki crying. Every time I passed the framed photos Mama gave us, I could not look at them. Every time I introduced myself at a function, doctor, wife, daughter of grace, woman of her own making, I could feel it sitting in my chest like a stone." Kemi said nothing. "I don't know where to start." "Start badly," Kemi said. "Say the first true thing." Amaka pressed her hands flat on the table. "I knew," she said. "Every single day, I knew. I knew in my first year when the school fees cleared and I thought, where did this come from? And I did not ask too many questions because I did not want the answer to cost me something. I knew at graduation. I knew when I met his family and felt the weight of their questions, and I thought, if they find out about Mushin, about the land, about the buka, they will use it. And I told myself, Kemi is strong. Kemi does not need the credit. Kemi will understand." Her voice broke. "But the truth is that I was ashamed. Not of you. I need you to hear me say that. I was never ashamed of you. I was ashamed that I had needed you. I was ashamed that I had not found my own way. And I covered that shame with a lie, and I left you standing outside of it." Kemi looked at her sister for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was steady. It was always steady. It was a woman whose voice had been steadied by years of hard mornings at hot pots and full tables. She said, "What hurt the most was not the naming ceremony flyer. It was not even finding out you had changed your gate code." Amaka winced. "It was the night you called me when you passed your final exams. You were crying on the phone, the real kind of crying, the kind you cannot control. And you said, 'Kemi, I passed.' And I was crying too. And you said, 'Do you remember?'" Amaka closed her eyes. "I said, 'This is yours too. Don't forget that.'" "Yes," Kemi said. "And I thought, she sees it. She knows we're in this together. I thought no matter how big she becomes, she knows the foundation." And then the calls got shorter, and the visits never came, and I would see the Lekki address on your letters, and I would understand a little more each time what was happening. I did not call you out because I thought, she is building something. She is scared. When she is ready, she will come back." She looked at Amaka directly. "Are you ready?" Amaka began to cry. Not the gentle kind, the Lagos kind, the kind that has been held in for too long in a city that doesn't give you much space to fall apart, the kind that shakes a person when it finally comes out. "I am sorry," she said. "I know that is not enough." "It is not enough," Kemi said, "but it is the right start. And in Lagos, Amaka, you know, everything starts from somewhere rough." She placed her hand on the table. Open, patient, waiting. After a moment, Amaka placed hers on top of it. Tunde sat very still and did not speak because he understood that what was happening in this Oshodi buka was older and larger than anything he could add to it. 2 years later, Kemi's buka had a second location. Not in Oshodi, but in Surulere, where the rent was higher, but where the kind of Lagosians Kemi wanted to feed came to sit and stay a while. 3 of the investors who made it possible were introduced through Tunde, who had eaten at the Oshodi buka every time they visited, which was now once a month at minimum, and who had the habit of talking about the food to everyone he knew, in a way that was partly about the food. The naming ceremony flyer had long since been thrown away, but a new frame hung above the door of the Oshodi buka. A large photograph taken by a proper photographer of 2 women sitting together at one of the buka's long tables with bowls of food in front of them and their heads bent toward each other caught mid-conversation. Kemi and Amaka. Below the photograph, painted directly on the wall in Kemi's own handwriting, because she had insisted on doing it herself, were the words, "We came from the same place. We are going to the same place. Everything in between is the story." Iyatope, who still came every day for her pepper soup, which was now free for life by Kemi's standing order to all 4 staff members, would point at the photograph whenever strangers asked about it. She would say, "Na that one build this buka, and na that one almost make her tear it down from shame." Then she would point at Amaka. "But she came back, and the one who built it let her back in. That na the Lagos miracle. Not money, not connection, forgiveness." She would sip her soup. Forgiveness dey cost anything, but it does not come cheap. There is one last thing to tell.
The evening that Amaka made her full public accounting, not in private, not in a lawyer's office, not whispered in a Lekki sitting room, but in the Oshodi buka, on a Saturday evening when the place was full, and the generator was running, and the ceiling fans were going, and the noise from the street was the usual Lagos evening noise of okadas and arguments and someone's Afrobeats bleeding through a wall somewhere. She stood up from the table without warning. Her husband looked at her. Kemi looked at her. The customers looked at her. And Amaka said, "I want to say something in front of everyone here, because I have been keeping something in the dark for too long, and dark things in Lagos, they find the light eventually. They always do." The buka quieted in that Lagos way, not completely silent, because Lagos is never completely silent, but the kind of quiet where people are listening even though they are pretending to eat. "Everything I call myself," Amaka said, "every patient I have treated, every night I sat in a hospital ward in the long hours before morning, every piece of paper with my name and qualification on it, it stands on one foundation. One woman who decided that I was worth everything she had, before I proved anything, before I earned anything, before I had even said thank you." She looked at Kemi. "I got to Lagos Island and I was afraid that the truth about where I came from would make people see me differently. So I dressed the truth up. I smoothed it out. I left my sister out of the picture because I thought a woman who needed her sister's sacrifice was a smaller kind of woman. I was wrong. I was so wrong." She took a breath. "She is the reason I exist in the form that I do. This buka is why I am a doctor. This woman is why I have a life worth living. And I wasted years pretending otherwise because I was a coward, sitting at a fine table with fine people, too afraid to tell the truth." She sat down. The buka was very still. Then Inyatokbe, who was in her usual chair by the window, said loudly and without preamble, "Okay, the confession done end. Now chop your food before the pepper soup turn cold. God has forgiven you. Now let the egusi send it too. Laughter broke across the room like a wave. The ceiling fan turned. The generator hummed. Lagos did its thing outside. And Kemi stood up, picked up the serving ladle, and began going table to table, filling bowls, the way she always did. Unchanged, unbroken, unreduced. And in that ordinary, powerful, abundant act of feeding the people around her, the act she had been performing in this city since before anyone at any fine Lagos Island table had learned her name, she was the most powerful woman on that street. She always had been. They just did not always know it. The fire that cooked the food does not ask to sit at the table, but no food would reach the table without it. Do not forget the fire. Moral of the story: the woman who sacrifices in silence does not disappear. She builds. And what she builds will outlast every lie told in a Lekki mansion. Do not be ashamed of the hand that carried you. That hand is your foundation. Erase it, and everything you have built is standing on nothing.